the grand experiment to boss around the U.S. private sector.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Odoo, dedicated to providing software designed to scale with businesses. Odoo's programs for manufacturing, accounting, and more aim to provide building blocks for creating a custom software suite. Odoo, what businesses need. And by Progressive Insurance. Progressive is looking for individuals who want to join an inclusive and unique culture. More information, including application, at progressive.com/careers.
I'm David Brancaccio in Los Angeles. First predictions were right. The Federal Reserve did lower its key interest rate by 1/4 of 1 percentage point yesterday. What lies ahead is less predictable, with different members of the Fed's interest rate committee forecasting different outcomes. Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer explains.
4 times a year, the Fed issues what it calls a summary of economic projections, predictions for economic growth, unemployment, inflation, and interest rates. The Fed's interest rate projections are mapped out in a graph, with each member of the FOMC, the committee that votes on interest rates, represented by a dot. It's called the dot plot. And Fed Chair Jerome Powell acknowledges it's not mapping out a clear path.
It's not incredibly obvious what to do. So we have to keep our eye on inflation. At the same time, we cannot ignore and must keep our eye on maximum employment, which is those are our two equal goals.
And Powell stressed that the dot plot just represents FOMC members' opinions, where they think interest rates should be set to achieve the Fed's goals. Powell noted that 10 of the dots point to 2 or more interest rate cuts for the rest of the year, and 9 people wrote down fewer or no rate cuts. Powell said, in essence, take the dot plot and the summary of economic projections, or SEP, with a grain of salt.
Rather than looking at this as certainty, I would encourage people, as always, to look at the SEP as through the lens of probability. And so there are different possible outcomes.
Powell says this mosaic of dots is natural, adding that it would be surprising if you didn't have a pretty wide range of views in a highly unusual situation. I'm Nancy Marshall-Genzer for Marketplace.
The 10-year interest rate this morning moving not down but up to 4.06%. Stocks, S&P futures are up 0.7%. NASDAQ futures are up 1.1%.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Amazon Business, dedicated to helping businesses save time on office tasks and empower leaders with business buying solutions that support teams to focus on growing the business. Learn about smart business buying at amazonbusiness.com. And by Schwab. Schwab offers investors choices like full-service wealth management, self-directed investing options, and trading on Thinkorswim. More at schwab.com.
Under Democrat Joe Biden, there was what was called industrial policy. But what do you call an economy managed from the White House the way we're seeing now? The list of interventions is long. President Trump calling for the immediate removal of a CEO, a top 100 corporation, the federal government purchasing just under 10% of the same company, microchip maker Intel. There are special exemptions to tariffs. There was the president calling on Walmart not to raise prices despite new import taxes. Justin Wolfers is an economist and public policy expert at the University of Michigan.
You also forgot a few others. He's been redesigning the Cracker Barrel logo in his spare time, calling Harvard and telling it who to hire, fire, and what to put on its curriculum. He's been talking to NVIDIA and AMD about under what conditions he'll let them sell their goods in China. He has a golden share in US Steel. And not too long ago, he called Goldman Sachs and told them to fire their chief economist. It's a long list.
It's a long list, and I guess, as we search for what to describe this as, I know what to not describe it as. It doesn't sound like an orthodox free market approach to the private sector.
Absolutely. So, right, what words can we give it? So one would be state capitalism. Capitalism is, obviously, we still have free markets in most things, but there's a lot of direction from the state, as per China. Another would be intervention. I like this term intervention because it describes what they're doing. They're intervening in the economy. Intervening often where it's to please the president's whims rather than there being a deep economic reason. I've had a number of journalists from more populist outfits who'd say, well, this is socialism. It's not. This is communism. It's not. It's government intervention. It's the heavy hand. Sometimes it's the greedy hand as well. because some of these moves, particularly when it comes to crypto and the like, are actually very closely related to the president's personal interests. This might be the most important: crony capitalism. So it's not just that the government's intervening. This is where policy helps the president's cronies. And so if you want something good, if you want regulatory relief, you have to turn up to the White House and you have to praise the president.
I mean, a lot of this adds up to a lot of friction for markets in different ways. It sounds like the opposite of efficiency in some ways.
Yes. One way of telling the story is the story of Apple. Steve Jobs, founder of Apple, brilliant visionary, relentlessly focused on creating a better product, and he succeeded. Apple products are brilliant and beautiful. And that was his job. And, he was so relentless that some people found him hard to deal with, but he was focused on better products. Tim Cook doesn't get to spend that much time looking at shiny new products. He's flying off to Mar-a-Lago. He's flying to Washington. He's having meetings about where the factories should or shouldn't be and what will or won't upset the White House. And so what this does, I tell the story there of Apple not because I care about Apple, but because it's a metaphor for what's happening inside every company, is it moves you away from competing in the marketplace, who's producing a better mousetrap, a shinier mousetrap, to competing in the political marketplace. And that's part of Tim Cook's job now, an important part, because if he didn't do well at that, Apple would fail. But that's all time that the company is focused on the White House rather than its customers. And that's going to lead to worse outcomes.
Justin Wolfers is a professor of economics and public policy at the Gerald R. Ford School of Public Policy at the University of Michigan. Justin, thank you so much.
Great pleasure, mate.
Now, Stephen Miron, now on leave from his role as chair of the President's Council of Economic Advisors to fill in at the Fed, has consistently said that the president's interventions are focused on dealing with unfair trade practices and boosting U.S. jobs. Also following word just now that AI leader NVIDIA will spend $5 billion to buy a stake in its beleaguered rival Intel. Intel stock up 30%. Marketplace Morning Report from APM, American Public Media.